Namaste everyone. Welcome back to my channel, The Holistic Yoga, a channel dedicated to improving our lives physically, mentally, emotionally and spiritually. Today I'm going to share experience of my first ever trek to Himalayas and more importantly the lessons that I learned from it. So let's get started. Just for a moment, close your eyes and imagine that money is not the constraint. Then what would be that one thing that you'd wish to do for the rest of your life? I'm sure you must have thought of the things that you're really passionate about. It could be gardening, it could be dancing, or maybe painting. Activities in which you get so immersed in that you lose sense of time and space. That one thing for me is traveling the world. Traveling and visiting new places have always been so liberating. You tend to realize how false all the stereotypes are. Understanding new culture, new beliefs, it kind of gives you a new perspective. Sometimes we are so high in our egos because we have done something big or achieved something great in the space that we live in that we tend to think of ourselves as some important person. But when you travel outside, you realize how small you are in this huge, gigantic world. It kind of keeps you grounded as well. But in spite of so much traveling since my childhood, there was this one place I've been wanting to visit for years but have been postponing it for one reason or the other. On one fine day in the month of November 2019, I finally booked my first ever trek to Himalayas, the Brahmatal trek. So the trek was in the last week of December and we had almost 1 month to prepare ourselves for it. We had to prepare ourselves with the gears that we would need there, like jackets, warmers, boots. So we shopped like maniacs. By we, I mean me and my siblings. Yes, I was going for this trek with my younger brother and my sister. So we even color coordinated our clothes so that the picture turns out to be good. And secondly, we had to prepare ourselves physically. First of all, to survive that torturous cold weather of -10 degrees. And secondly, to climb the mountain at an altitude where even breathing itself is a challenge because air is so thin. So after a month of preparation, the most awaited date had arrived. We flew from Mumbai to Delhi and then we took a train from Delhi to a small beautiful town called Kathgodam. This is the last point till which the train goes, and if you need to go any further up, then you have to travel by road. So we took a bus from Kathgodam to our base camp to complete our last 10 to 12 hours of journey. Well, the journey was very hectic and the climate was getting colder and colder with every passing hour. By the time we reached our base camp, it was already dark and we were very tired. So all we wanted to do was eat and sleep, and that's exactly what we did. The next morning was something I had never experienced in my life before. We all woke up to a breathtaking view. When I got up and got out of my tent, I realized that the base camp was on the cliff of a mountain and the sun was rising beyond the mountain ranges, and the sun rays felt so nice and warm on the skin that we thought that this cannot be earth, this has to be heaven. So after enjoying the nature's beauty to its best, we all had to get ready to start our journey. It was supposed to be a 5 day trek, 3 days up trek and 2 days down trek. So while packing the bag, we were told to keep all the unnecessary stuff at the base camp and carry the things that would be required during this 5 days of trek. But then we had spent a whole month collecting all that stuff, so we were not leaving anything behind. So we stuffed everything in our backpack and left for the trek. And as expected, the bag started to wear me down. My shoulders and my back was aching like nothing before. When I was buying all that stuff, everything made sense, but now I felt so stupid. Of course, I was not gonna use even the half of the stuff that was in my bag. The bag was getting heavier and heavier with each step, and the thought of carrying it for 5 days just made me sick. I realized how we burden ourselves with our own desires. Finally, when I couldn't take it any longer, I approached my guide and asked him if anything could be done now. But then it was already too late. We were too far off from our base camp. But saying that, the guide took my bag and said that the next resting point is just few minutes away. We reached the resting point, we ate and we rested. And then I had to pick up that bag again. But this time when I lifted the bag didn't feel that heavy. Firstly, because my muscles had the rest that they needed. And secondly, this time I didn't have to carry this bag for 5 days. I only had to carry it till the next resting point. I realized two things that day. Firstly, in life too, we get too scared when we see a big problem ahead of us, or we don't set the right goal for us, thinking that it is beyond our reach. But all we have to do is take the next step, one step at a time, and there is no place in the world we cannot reach. And secondly, how important it is to have the right kind of people in your life. People who are motivating, people who are supporting, because these are the people who can either make or break your journey. Be it journey to the mountain top or be it the journey of life. After a killer first day trek, we finally reached our next base camp. We were all so tired and exhausted that all we wanted to do is eat and sleep, and that's exactly what we did on this day as well. And then it was day 2. The second day was going to be pretty chilled out because our body had acclimatized to the climate and our mind knew what to expect. So with all new josh and enthu, we started our day 2 trek. We were trekking in this thick, pure white sheets of snow. The snow was so pure and pristine that in spite of our guide advising it against it, we even ate some of it. These were the lesser traveled terrains, so the beauty of the nature was preserved. And that day I realized that the nature is so beautiful that it even feels magical. And the same is so true for our body. Everything is happening in sync, everything is happening on its own. All we have to do is maintain it. And what do? Destroy it, just like every other thing that nature has created. That day I made a point to myself that I will preserve the nature around me. No matter how small it is, I will do my bit. So we really enjoyed the second day of the trek. We were playing with snowballs, we were making snow angels, we were sliding through the slippery snow, and by the time we reached our tent, we even had a bonfire. We were dancing around it, singing, even shouting because we were enjoying our own echoes. The snow was sparkling in the moonlight and the stars were so bright. It felt like we were part of some beautiful landscape painting painted by the perfect artist we know, the nature. Finally, the fire died down and it was too cold to stay outside, so we all retired to our tents. Finally, it was the third day of the trek, the day we were going to be at the top. And on that day, we didn't even have to carry our backpacks. So we thought that it is going to be relatively easy. But on the contrary, it was the toughest trek of all 5 days. As we were reaching the mountain top, the slope was getting steeper and steeper. Each step took double the effort to a point that my body said enough. I couldn't take it any longer and I was at the verge of giving up. And at the same instant, I saw a trekker coming down from the top. And I asked him how far it is. And the trekker said, maybe another hour. Another hour? It was too much for me. I can't take one step, forget about walking for another hour. It was not gonna happen. Then I asked him how it is. And all he said is that it's worth it. That one word was enough for me to gather all my courage, all my willpower again, and to start trekking. And finally, after what felt like ages, we were all at the top of the mountain. And the trekker that I met on the way was so right. It was all worth it. Many a times in life too, when the struggle gets too much for us to bear, we end up giving. And sadly in life, we don't have anybody telling us that just go on, you're almost there. What most of us fail to realize is that the struggle is at maximum when we are so close to our goal. All we need to do is just remember the purpose for which you started this journey and always finish what you start. So here we were, a group of 10 people so high on our happiness that we were dancing, jumping, posing, clicking photos from all possible angles. We were all so happy, not only because that we were at the top of the mountain, but because we had completed the journey. Finally, when I sat down and had a moment to myself, all I could think about was the journey that I had. I'd been so obsessed about being at the top for so many years, but now that I was there, all I could think about was the things I've been through to be there. In life, too, we keep postponing our happiness for some big events or some major milestones. But if you have had a miserable journey, no destination, no milestone can make you happy. It was not about how fast we got there, it was not about what was waiting on the other side, it was about the climb. So live your life today, be happy now, and all these mountain tops and major milestones would just be a byproduct of it. This was a journey that changed me as a person. I learned life lessons that I'd never thought of before. As rightly said by a French novelist, Mr. Marcel Proust, the real voyage of discovery is not in seeking new landscapes, but in having new eyes. And this is exactly what this journey had given me. So if somebody asks me today, what is that one thing that I wish to do for the rest of my life, it will not be just traveling the world, but also a journey within. If you enjoyed the video and like the contents of this channel, then don't forget to hit the subscribe button down below and share this channel with all your love, likes and share. See you soon. Namaste.